Sir, it's going to live stream, sir, in YouTube.
Okay.
So good morning. Greetings to everyone from the Department of International Relations, Maharajas College, University of Mysore. I welcome you all to the discussion on book Fault Lines in the Faith, authored by Professor Iqbal S. Hasnain from former Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University, Kerala, and a Padma Shri awardee. Sir, it is an honor to have you with us. Warm welcome to you to the discussion, sir. Today, we have with us Professor K.S. Rangappa, former Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore, a scientist and ambassador to Hokkaido University, Japan, and Professor A.K. Pasha, former Professor of JNU, diplomat and director, CIWAB. I cannot stop myself from saying that these two personalities are the foundational pillars and well-wishers of the department with whose support I could do all these works. I extend my welcome to beloved principal and AO sir. Due to examination load, they could not join us online, but they told they will join online, sir. And I welcome them also, sir. And the title of author's work holds a significant meaning as it highlights the Muslim world's inability to halt its current trajectory and regain control for sustainable development. His thorough research explores the radicalization of Muslim youth in North America and Europe, as well as the sectarian fault lines and rise of the Shia crescent in the Middle East. This is a very important work that exposes how extremist outfits, with the support of the religious apparatus, and manage to score the face of a faith that claims to have the second largest number of the followers in the world. In this well-written book, author has addressed a deeply significant issues focusing on a major turning point in modern Islamic history. In an academic manner, Professor Hasnain has conducted an in-depth investigation into three significant events that occurred in 1979 that had a profound impact on the history of the Islamic world in subsequent years. I extend my gratitude, Professor Hasnain, for his valuable contributions. Once again, warm welcome to you all, sir. Today's event will be carried out in two phases, sir. In the first phase, the experts will be providing their input. This will be followed by a young scholar session. Once again, I welcome all the faculty, scholars, and media persons who have joined us today. Without taking much time, I request Professor K.S. Rangappa to give his presidential address. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Professor Hasnain, it's a pleasure. And welcome to the University of Mysore and the Vijnana Bhavan on behalf of the Department of International Relations. My good friend, Iqbal Pasha, and Professor Bharti, Dr. Kalita, and many international students who are here and participants online, the principal of the college, administrator, media friends. It's indeed an honor for me to be here on this occasion, the occasion of the book discussion, The Fault Line in the Faith. Although I am a scientist, but certain things scientists can also observe, can understand the situation of the social science. Of course, it gives me a great pleasure to be here today as the Department of International Relations conducts a book discussion on fault lines in the faith, a book that addresses the issue of radicalization, extremism, and other changes in the West Asian, North American, and European regions over the past couple of decades. Although I've not read the whole contents of the book, Dr. Bharati told me very briefly about the book. This book is a peep into the realities of the world and questions faith in its nature to lead us, the followers, blind. The esteemed author further dwells on the questions of misogyny, gender politics, and also religious extremism and their influence on mainstream of politics and governments. He says, what if an ideology which is meant to impart this wisdom and guidance to humanity itself loses all its control, that causes serious woes to the entire world? And this question is the core of his most important recent work done by the author. Professor Hasnain has employed a scientific methodology in to analyze the development, causes, and consequences of each of these major events of 1979. His meticulous analysis provides a thorough examination, interpretation, and assessment of the repercussions of these events in various Islamic countries and across different subject areas, shedding light on their influence on the development and progression of Islamic societies. I extend my heartfelt congratulations to Professor Hasnain for his valuable contribution, appreciating the significance of his work. And I wish Professor Hasnain will come out with more number of this kind of contribution or this kind of books to the society, which will in turn, the society will know, those who do not know, will be able to understand his contribution very widely. And I, on behalf of the University of Mysore and on behalf of the Department of International Studies, I appeal to Professor Hasnain to see that these contributions should be relevant to the most of the public. Not only particularly Islamic society, it should be in check. And I am sure he's a very well learned professor and he will be able to do it. At the University of Mysore, of course, I don't have to say anything. We have constantly aimed to raise the bar in education since 1916. The university is established. More than 100 years, 110 years. The Department of International Relations in tandem with our larger effort from the Professor Akmal Pasha has constantly pursued excellence by bringing in guests like said to engage in thoughtful and productive discussions, expanding intellectual horizons. We are incredibly pleased to be here doing this discussion, enabling larger discourse related to student curriculum and other, general learning. I urge all the youngsters, you all young minds, to absorb the most knowledge and present their questions and thoughts during the discussion of this great book. This book definitely attracts the attention of the younger generation, which can throw light on the public also. I wish you all the success, and I thank you once again for giving me an opportunity to be here in releasing the book, namely The Fault Lines in the Faith. Thank you, each one of you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir, for your presidential address and your presence is valuable to us. Thank you for spending time. Now I request Professor Iqbal sir to talk on his book and to brief about the book, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Professor Rangappa, former Vice Chancellor of the National University, Dr. Bharti, the head of the department and coordinator of the international studies, Professor Asha, my former colleague from JNU, and my guide while I was writing this book. First time I gave all my rough manuscript to him, and then he said, okay, this is the problem, this is the problem. Then we have to, go to other editors and all that. And that's what happened. And then Dr. Kalita, very nicely present here, and my dear students who come from different parts of the world to learn international relations right in this beautiful Mysore city of Karnataka. So thank you very much. I thank the University of Mysore for organizing this discussion today and making it possible. After a long time, actually, I was here in Mysore city sometime about 20 years back. Oh. Yeah, but now I'm back again into this city and to this university campus. So thank you very much. So I will not talk about the contents of the book because the taste of the pie is in eating it. So you will have to buy it. But I'll tell you briefly how I got the inspiration, because my background as a science background. I'm an environmentalist. I was professor in environmental sciences, and my area of research was Himalayan glacier. And that is two different. When I became the vice chancellor of Calicut University, the local media is very powerful there, Malayalam media. They say, why they brought the glaciologists to Calicut? What he will be doing? There's no glacier there. So I said, I have not come to study the glacier in Kerala, just to do the administration of the university. And that I will do it. That I am a competent enough. To do it. So that was the kind of reception I got because of my background. Because this is not an area which is very commonly taught in the university. Actually, this is the area where in the initial stage, the Government of India, Geological Survey of India is doing the glacier. I was the one who first time brought it to the university system and opened some courses at the MPhil and PhD level in JNU. And that's how it became popular. Because, earlier nobody was knowing that glaciers are there. Oh, they are there. Something is snow, mountains are there. But how they are important to the humanity or the community, and what is the impact of the climate change on that. So that is the dialogue I put up into the public domain, and that is how the people got interested. Having said that, let's come to the book. So I was a European Union Fellow for Glaciology to study in Alps in the University of Manchester in '94. So University of Manchester has a huge Muslim community. The students are there from Arab countries, from South Asia, and that those students who are studying there, they were they are born and brought up in that Western society, whether England or the European countries or Belgium, and even the Arab community, sons were born and daughters born there. So I saw a lot of extremism, and in the Juma prayer, I used to go into the Union Hall, it's a huge Union Hall, University of Manchester, and they used to talk about jihad and all those kind of things. So I was coming from India, I was not knowing how they are going to jihad. And they think that these Americans and these Western countries had really, they were very much angry against the Western culture and against society, though they are living there. And their parents were brought up then to have a future. And they used to give very fairy kind of speeches into that. And the Imam would be the student. So I was really struck by that kind of a change which is happening in the youngster at that time. So then I moved to the US, and then I visited many Islamic centers around that. And that was the '94 period when this Taliban government was set up in Afghanistan. and they were talking about that. And then, after the namaz, they used to spread one paper and request the students who want to sign for the jihad. So once I also signed, and then we had a meeting. I said that we would like to go to Saudi Arabia for a short course. I mean, in summer I'm going to the Alps mountains. I have no time, but I would like to know when we will go. Say we, as a student group, every 6 months we go to Saudi Arabia and they give lectures in Medina and Makkah and all. So some professors come there and they give funding for us to travel to that and talk about all these things, what is going on in the Muslim world globally at that time. So I was really wanted to probe more about those things. Then I saw in the university, US university campuses, there are Islamic societies which are founded in 1960, and they also became very radicalized in 90s. And then what happened then, Mr. Osama bin Laden has moved to Afghanistan and jihadis, globalization to global by that. So all these things were in the back of my mind. So when I retired and stopped doing much glaciology, I thought that I should do something about it, write something about it. Then I started collecting some materials and all that and something. And then in between, I tell you, I was, after 2009, I think I joined one think tank in Washington, D.C. It's known as Stimson Center. The Stimson Center, I got a State Department project to study about the shared water between China, India, and all that. So I was doing that. But if you know the geography of Washington D.C., all the think tanks are nearby. This is a big industry. So I used to go to other think tanks and listen to all these kind of policy decisions and things are happening there, whether it is in the Carnegie or Wilson, so many numbers of them on Middle East and all that, and they were talking about and discussing. So I got more interested about Afghanistan, and then though my job was not to study Afghanistan, was with the shared Himalayan glaciers. And so I wrote articles in my Stimson Center about Afghanistan. So then I got more interested, and then I came back to India, and then collecting materials, books, and all that. And then I thought that what has happened in 1979 is a very pivotal year, which actually triggered all the things. Before, if you look on the Middle Eastern countries, before 79, Saudi Arabia, they are the ladies are driving cars, there were pictures, theaters are there, and the filmmaking is there. Even I saw that recently. There was somebody telling before 79 it was happening. So why in 79 everything is happening? So 79, the trigger point, in my view, that's what I've written in this book, is the Iranian Revolution. Because the Iranian Revolution is the first revolution in the Middle East, which is not from the top, from the army, or it is from the bottom up. And the ordinary people are uprising, and they changed the king or the Shah of Iran, because the Shah of Iran had a very good relations with Israel and relationship with Saudi Arabia and all that. But that thing has changed totally after the after this Iranian Revolution. So in the beginning, King Khalid was there. So they thought, oh, another Islamic country. But they were not knowing that it's the revival of Shiaism, which was one of the fault lines in Islam, right from after the death of the Prophet. There was who will be succeeding him, and then how the Shiaism was born at that time from Karbala, before Karbala, but actually the real fault lines came after Karbala in 680. That is the critical year in Islamic history. So that one group is following Shiaism, another following Sunnism. So if in the Sunni, if you look at globally, there are 4 jurisprudence type of sections. One is the Hanafi Sunni Islam, one is Shafi'i, one is Maliki, and one is Hanbali. So if you look at the expansion of Islam after this Umayyad period, if you go back into the Umayyad time when they were ruling after Karbala, that Umayyad dynasty has come back. And then they see that Islam moved towards the Mediterranean side, and 1% of Islam moved towards the Red Sea side. So those who moved to the Mediterranean side, Alexandria, Istanbul, Andalusia, and all this, presently the southern Spain, and all that. So they were a cosmopolitan type of Islam, and they were following Hanafi Sunni Islam. And in the Indian subcontinent, all countries were following the Hanafi Sunni Islam. And but on the other side, right side of the Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and what is that, Syria, and all that, they were following Hanbali. And Hanbali is very intolerant, xenophobic type of thing. And they were influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah, which I said in the 14th century, after the Mongol invasion, when the Abbasid things and all that were. So he wrote, he said that the fall of the Islamic culture was because of that they lost the touch with the real Islam, the Salafi Islam, the original Islam. That's why he called the Salafi. Salafi means in the Arabic, the earlier Islam, which was followed in the Khalifa, three Khalifas. Yeah. So that was the loss for that, and that's why he said the Quran and the Hadith is the base, and there's nothing in between God and us. And even he attacked the Prophet Muhammad's the tomb, original tomb, but during that time Ottomans were in power. And they were very angry about that, and they arrested all these things and hanged some of them, and that things happened. I wrote some of that, you will find in the book, how these things were churning in the Ottoman period, and this group. But he wrote a lot of books. And just diversion, my hunch is that if you see the Mughal history, entire Mughal history, all Mughals are very liberal, except one. Why? So somebody has to answer. So I try to answer that because the teachers of all Mughal princes used to come from Saudi or from the Middle East, what you call the West Asia. So perhaps the teacher who taught Aurangzeb, his brother was different, Dara Shikoh. He was a follower of Ibn Taymiyyah, this humbly kind of. That's why he started hating other religion, and he did what he did. We know it in the full of history. And his brother, elder brother, Dara Shikoh, was different because he believing in the Sufism, and he's trying to translate so many Hindu scriptures and all that, and try to see the commonality between Hinduism and Islam. That's what he was doing. But his other brother was not. So their teachers were different, who taught them in the early life. So that may be the reason, and no other Mughal emperor or other has that kind of a streak as Mr. Aurangzeb has got. So that perhaps may be the reason, because when I see the history of Islam back into the Ibn Taymiyyah time, and then Ibn Taymiyyah died in 14th century, he was there, and then Ottomans very powerful, and they all subsided, and nobody has a dare to talk about those things. And they were against Fatiha on the Madar and obeisances on the on these Madars and things like that, which was very popular in the Indian subcontinent. The people came from from Central Asia, and they are all Iranians, and they used to come to India. They have got many, and they talk, and they see commonality with the Hindus, because they are also believing after the Bhakti movement and all that. They are the same kind of a spiritual and talking with the God. And that's why the yoga book, Yoga Shastra, the original yoga book, was translated into Persian. And they were practiced by many madars, the priests of those things, whether in Ajmer and other places. So that was the thing which is happening in the Indian subcontinent or other places. So then to talk about the point, another thing I want to make it, yeah. Sorry. So then, if you see that in the early 20th century, there is a nationalism in the West Asia, or what we call the Middle East. There is Nasir and Senior Assad and all these kind, and in Iraq, Mr. What is his name? Qasim and all those, they were socialist type of thing. And they were talking about the national, Arab national. Then in the late 20th century, after this, then the Islamism or the political Islam has started taking the shape and coming to the fore. So the turning point of this whole thing came in 79 again by the siege of the Kaaba. So why the siege of Kaaba happened? That I think all you people who are interested in West Asia should explore it more as a subject. Siege of Kaaba happened because of the retaliation against the Iranian Revolution, about the Shiaism, revival of Shiaism. And that's why so many Islamists thought that these Shia, because they don't consider them as a Muslims even, forget about other things. And so they seized the Kaaba and forced the ruling royal family. Either you because you are doing or you showing all American plays and all those things, they took that kind of a view. But in the back of mind is against the revolution of the Iranian revolution and expansion of the Shia globally. So they were against that, and then they forced King Khalid to have kind of an agreement with them that we will run the religious affairs and you run the government. And since then, the entire thing in Saudi Arabia has changed. And they had in the initial period they gave $2 billion to the global. They have a World Muslim Council or something like that. They have World Muslim League. And they were the main people, and they changed and the interpretation of the Quran, the interpretation of the Hadith, and they brought this Wahhabi culture, Wahhabi element into that, and they distributed globally. And that was the reason why this 94 people talking the jihad. The jihad is the architecture, the basic architecture of Wahhabism, Salafism, jihadism, and that's why they hate other religions. And that's what the Taliban and all those things are following. And they were against the women. They want to put them in parda and only the eyes were, you can see some of them here. So they are influenced by that, and only the eyes are visible and everything is covered. So that is the kind of those who are following the Wahhabi creed of Islam. And that is what they did. And then this is one aspect. The other aspect is their extremism and the jihad and fighting. And so then this Al Qaeda was established and formed, and it globalized the terrorism. And then the Islamic State comes because of the Americans have invaded Iraq. That also have some consequences of that. And after that, they are still there. Globally. Recently you saw that in Iran, the Islamic State has have a suicide bombers, and they killed so many people of that Mazar. So that's why I also quoting this President Obama has said once that you can degrade the ideology, but you cannot defeat it. It is impossible to defeat that. It is there among the people. So it depends, it goes very slowly out in the system, from the education system, from their mind. So that is what's happening. And Hamas is also a part of that ideology, because you see the Islamic Brotherhood. Islamic Brotherhood gave rise to all these things, the same ideology. But they have a political party also, and there is they are fighting for one cause, not the entire cause. Just like Islamic State, they were there to establish the Islamic State, and Al Qaeda was more in the global kind of a thing, and they were very particular and very focused about the Palestinian issue. So that is the difference, But the base ideology, just like Taliban and all that, they follow the humbly type of Islamic creed, where they put women, they don't allow them for education, they keep them. Even in Afghanistan, I was reading recently that after 6, they are not allowing them to go to school. So Afghanis are very smart and wanted to study. Their girls are very smart, but they are forcing them not to go to the school. So that same thing is happening in some other places where they are there. But many Muslim communities live in a multicultural society. And same thing happened in France. So then in the last chapter, I put up the example of Morocco. Right, Morocco has done changes. So every country was impacted, including Morocco, and there was suicide bombing and all that. Then the present king was very upset with that, and then he removed all the literature, Wahhabi literature from their Islamic seminaries and all that. And he said that training program to the imams that we should not follow that kind of a creed, but that. So now the things have improved in Morocco, and similarly, the President Macron has taken a cue from, because they're all French people, and they say, okay, we will also do. So President Macron has stopped all foreign funding for the Islamic Center, and he's also training them. And then Saudi Arabia also changed recently when in 2017 when the MBS, the famous Mohammed bin Salman, he said that we are not reinterpreting Islam, but we are restoring Islam as we are there before 79. And he said in the New York Times interview that, okay, our ladies were driving cars and we are going to theaters and all that. So I want to bring that thing back into that. So since MBS became very powerful and he stopped all that in Saudi Arabia, so there is a big change globally. So because the funding they stopped, there was no funding coming to Saudi Arabia for the Wahhabis and Salafis, and but it is there in the society in our countries, poor countries is more. So it will take a while for them to get out from that kind of Islam. But slowly, the spiritual Islam, the original, some people say, what is the original Islam? That is the Islam which we were practicing earlier and which everybody was living peacefully. So that is the Islam, is the original Islam. But Islam is Islam. So that is the only thing which is it is happening, but it is having certain areas which is having a challenges. So I don't know. So this is the USP of my book is only to use three pivotal events of 79 and try to analyze the Islamic or the political Islam of extremists in our society. So that is the, but it requires more research. This is not the end of the research. But these are the really a point at the year which turned the whole world up, differently, and the people are starting hating Islam, and that kind of a 9/11 happened, and so many things in Europe happened and everywhere. So we had a problem as a Muslims. Globally we had a problem because of these things which happened quickly, and then changed the attitude of the Muslim world. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
I don't know. I said a little bit because if you read, then you go into the details. I'm not going into the overall.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful and thought-provoking ideas. Though you are from the science domain,
Yeah.
the way you narrated the things, issues is wonderful, sir. It is enlightens us. I hope the students of our department and many more youngsters, they will be enlightened and they will further think about that.
Yeah.
How it will impact on not only on community, it also impact on economic aspects also. If the way they are continuing, if they continue this, and the whole world is thinking about the feminism and involvement of the female candidates in the in the working community, and maybe it may, as you told, it may impact on other aspects also. Students and the scholars, youngsters, they have to think once about this. Thank you once again, sir. Now I request Professor Pasha to give his inputs. He is a great scholar and a specialized personality in this area, sir. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Respected Professor K.S. Rangappa, former Vice Chancellor of Mysore University, Dr. Karthik Element, founder and director of the Board of State Transportation Program, Professor Syed Hasnain, former Vice Chancellor of Brilliant Study, our contemporary events which have shaped the relations between several nations globally, and also which calls for further research, because the events have not ended, which is the earthquake, they call it 79 earthquake. Tremors are still being felt in different parts of the world, and we need to investigate why in some places it led to tsunami, why in some places it is leading to what is happening today in Gaza, or why Iran is doing what it is doing, and how the West is responding, United States, EU, Canada, etc., and how it is impacting India and South Asia. That is very important because we are very near to the place where all of these events, 4 events, as the author pointed out, although he did not name the other ones, but the events, one has to link these 4 events, which were seismic. They were so great that its impact is being felt even to this day, and they will continue to impact the coming years and be a challenge for politicians, leaders, and for common people, because it is impacting the lives on a day-to-day basis. The first event, of course, was the Iranian Revolution, whose links can be traced to the decision of the United States and UK in 1952-3 to overthrow Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh, who, as a nationalist Iranian, tried to nationalize the Iranian oil company. Because the oil was found in Iran way back in 1907, and it was being exported, exploited, drilled, and refined and sent to European countries with hardly any revenue to the Iranian people. They did not benefit from this Iranian oil, which was exclusively under the control of the British, and he tried to nationalize in 1952. But the British and the French, the Americans conspired and they overthrew him. And that led to the emergence of Shah and the brutal dictatorship which the Iranians saw. And finally, in February 1979, they overthrew him. And Khomeini emerged from nowhere. He was nowhere in the picture. He was living in Paris. And suddenly, he mobilized the Iranians under the banner of Islam. And he became emerged as the leader and also a very powerful monarch. The Americans were solidly behind the Shah of Iran. So it sent tremors all over the world, not only because of the geographic location of Iran, which shares borders with almost 18 countries, including the GCC countries, a huge coastline, and very rich in oil and gas. The second largest gas reserves are found in Iran, and the 4th largest oil reserves are found in Iran. So it's a great resource, hydrocarbon resource. And it was a loss for the Americans, which was bordering the Soviet Union, their arch enemy, the Cold War. So it was a great shock to the Americans to lose Iran as an ally. And of course, America was more than 10,000 miles away from the Iranian border. But the American allies from Saudi Arabia to Turkey to Pakistan to all the Gulf countries, they were literally shaken. Because what Khomeini did soon after he came to power was that he branded these monarchies as un-Islamic. Because in Islam, monarchy is not allowed. The ruler has to rule with the consent of the people, and that consent has to be renewed periodically. That means the legitimacy. That means elections, concurrence, and trust and public opinion. These are very important. So what Khomeini was doing was challenging the monarchies, the very foundations of monarchy in the West Asian countries. So these monarchs felt threatened, and naturally they went to America, and the dependency syndrome increased between these countries and the United States in a big way. And we can see after 1979, the Americans have established themselves in all of these countries, now including Iran. And their primary reason was to contain Soviet Union and to maintain their influence and domination over the oil resources, oil and gas resources. And this region being a very old region, old centers of civilization for thousands of years, you know, the Magan civilization in Oman, the Sumerian civilization, Syria, Mesopotamia in Iraq, and Yemeni civilization, and various other civilizations have flourished there. And in the Quran, it is written that this region was sent more than 124,000 prophets. This is the only region where God found that prophets need to be sent. The reason why this is important is this is a tribal region. Every few kilometers, few areas, there is a tribe which controls. And there was continuous and perpetual war between these tribes. Even a small camel or a goat or sheep would go to the other tribal area's territory, there would be war. They would massacre people in the name of tribal affinity identity. So internecine warfare is rampant in this region. And these tribes, which were given flags by the British and the French, they emerged as states. So the threat of export of Iranian revolution badly shook these monarchies, and America was terrified that they would lose not only these monarchies, but also the control over oil and gas, and it will be a victory for the Soviet Union, its rival, because the revolution was sympathetic to Soviet Union initially, the mullahs in Iran. This is one. So this event in Iran led to the capture of Kaaba in November 1979, and this shook the foundation of the Saudi monarchy, and they could not expel these armed people from Kaaba because they were simply incapable. They had to seek the help of Egyptians, French, and other military advisors to expel these rebels who had taken over. Because the legitimacy of the Saudi monarchy lays on the control of Kaaba, Mecca and Medina, these two holy places, because the ruler is called the custodian of the two holy places. So that's how Saudi Arabia looks upon itself as the leader of Islam. So this capture was an eye-opener to the Saudis and the Americans that what Khomeini has done, he is not confined to the borders of Iran, but it will spread soon to the Sunni areas also. I must make a mention here that the Shia Islam is organized Catholics, from the Pope down to the lowest level priest. It is a hierarchical based creed of Islam. But Sunnis don't have this. The Sunnis, anybody can become an imam with certain knowledge, and he can be fired. He can be employed and fired. But in Shia Islam, they cannot be removed. Once he is an Ayatollah, he is an Ayatollah until he dies. So this distinction has to be kept in mind. So the Sunni rulers were terrified that the Arab masses are influenced by this ideology of what Khomeini is articulating. And the third one was flowing from these two events. They realized that the Western countries realized that if they don't address this immediate threat, their long-term hegemony would be challenged by the Soviet Union. So that is where the Afghan factor comes, flowing from the Iranian Revolution to the monarch, the Kaaba takeover, and they promote the jihadi culture. All the prisoners who were held by the Saudis and other Arab countries were now brought in planes, plane load of people into Pakistan, into northwest frontier. They were trained and armed, and millions of dollars were given by the Saudis. The CIA trained these into extremists and jihadis to fight the infidel Soviet Union, the communists. So there is this war which started in 1979 because the Afghan government was seen as communist and supportive of the Soviet Union and trying to spread communism and put an end to Islam in Afghanistan and neighboring areas. So the Americans in league with the Saudis used the Wahhabi brand of Islam, Sunni Islam from Saudi Arabia, and they indoctrinated hundreds and thousands of people from different parts of the world, especially the Arab countries, and they were trained by the Pakistanis. And that ultimately led to the end of Soviet Union and withdrawal from the Soviet from Afghanistan. Flowing from these three events, another important event took place, and that was Sadat's visit to Jerusalem. In November 1977, President Anwar Sadat of Egypt, who had fought with Israel along with Hafez al-Assad in 73, so-called October War, he was desperate to end this war with Israel because of economic and other problems. Because he realized that the Egyptians will not be able to sustain this conflict for long, because he had burnt his bridges with the Soviet Union and he was not getting sufficient military help. And the Gulf Arabs were not giving him the financial support as he needed. So in that way, he realized that these two constraints and Egypt's inability to sustain this war, because Egypt has very limited resources, except the Suez Canal and the Egyptians who send remittances back and some exports of Egyptian cotton. There is very little income for the Egyptians. So this huge war effort since 48 was draining the Egyptian economy, and poverty had risen to very high levels in Egypt. And also the Suez Canal was closed from 67 onwards, and the revenues which Egypt was getting had vanished virtually. So Sadat visited Jerusalem in 1977, and after that, Jimmy Carter, the US president, mediated between Israel, Prime Minister Menachem Begin, and the Camp David Accords in September 1978 were signed. But all other Arab countries opposed, including PLO. But Sadat went ahead and he signed the bilateral peace treaty with Israel in March 1979. That is how Egypt was isolated. Egypt was expelled from the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Conference. Egypt was diplomatically isolated. But nevertheless, Sadat remained committed for the peace with Israel, and he ended the 30 years long war confrontation with Israel. And with American mediation, the bilateral treaty under the Camp David was signed. But this led Israel to become more aggressive. They built more settlements in West Bank and in Gaza, and they oppressed the Palestinians, and the Palestinian cause slowly was being put into the background, because the largest Arab country had now concluded peace with Israel. So Israel became more aggressive. And in the same year, in 78, 79, they invaded Lebanon up to the Litani River and destroyed part of southern Lebanon. And then in 1982, in June, they invaded Lebanon and massacred the Palestinians in Shawra Shatila very brutally with the Maronite Christians, bombarded Beirut, actually destroyed Lebanon, a beautiful country where millions of tourists would go. And it is a country where Christians, Muslims, Druze, Kurds, everybody lived in harmony there. But this attack on the Palestinians fractured the communal situation there, and it led to great bloodshed and turmoil in the Lebanese society. So this Camp David Accords and Egypt's quest for peace, Sadat, who shared the Nobel Prize with Begin, the Israeli Prime Minister, was a noble cause which was aimed towards achieving peace. But unfortunately, the other Arabs did not realize the importance of this step which Sadat took. And in fact, Jimmy Carter wrote in his memoirs that if he had the support of Saudi Arabia and the Palestinians, hopefully this problem of the West Bank and Gaza would have been solved, and autonomy for the Palestinians would have started way back in 1979, because that was the goal under the Camp David Accords. But unfortunately, Saudi Arabia and Syria and Algeria, Iraq and other countries did not support Sadat, and the whole Arab world boycotted. So this sent again the tremors, because the Palestinian cause is very dear to each and every Arab. They are part of the Arab world. They are part of the Arab tribes. And what happens to the Arab, Palestinian Arabs, every Arab, every citizen around the world his conscience is shaken. How they are brutally treated in Gaza and in West Bank, and how their cause is sidelined. So these four events, if you link the Iranian Revolution, the Kaaba takeover, the Afghan intervention by the Soviet Union, the jihadi struggle, the development of Al-Qaeda, and the Egyptian initiative for peace, all of these, whatever happened, we are still grappling with the fallout from these events. What is happening today in Gaza is easily can be linked to the peace treaty in 1979. The unfinished business of continuing, which other Arab countries like Bahrain and the UAE and Saudi Arabia or Sudan and Morocco, they are doing. But if they had done in 78, 79, probably there would have been peace, and the Palestinians would not have had to suffer immensely as they have done since 1979. Hundreds and thousands of Palestinians have been killed, brutalized, and their life has been ruined, and that has become world cause, global cause. And this all is linked to the strategy of oil, how to control and influence developments in the region which has rich hydrocarbon resources, and the Cold War with the Soviet Union. So what the West did was to keep Iran in the picture as a major Shia power, because as Professor Hasnain pointed out, within 30 years after the death of Prophet, there was a split in Islam, like what happened among the Christians, Catholics and Protestants. So you have the Shias and Sunnis. The Shias are confined to, the Iranians became Shia in 15th century. And the old Shias are in Iraq, parts in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Yemen, and partly in Lebanon. So these are the Arab Shias. They speak Arabic, and they were Shia even before Iran became Shia in the century. So these fault lines were there, but these were not very rigid. For example, in Iraq, I've been there, the Shias and Sunnis live together, they marry together, and they have absolutely no problem accepting each other. Like the Christians and the Muslims in Egypt. I've lived in Egypt for 4 years. And it is very difficult to distinguish who is a Muslim, who is a Christian in Egypt.
Names are there.
They have the same names, they wish the same way, they live the same way, same language. There's no difference.
How about in India? See.
I'll come to that, it is a very important point. So, this attempt to divide the Muslims between Shia as monsters and troublemakers and the Sunnis as good was because of the American manipulation of the sectarian conflict to their own advantage. That Iran is a disruptor, Iran is a spoiler, so that has to be confronted. So this terrible Cold War between Iran and Saudi Arabia emerged since '79, which is still raging in this region, which is still impacting not only these two countries, but the entire region and India also. We have not been immune from the developments of all of these four developments. It has affected us, impacted us. I'll come to that in a minute. But so these four events, cataclysmic events have shaped the foreign policies, the destiny of these states, and this has led to two major events. One is greater foreign intervention. The United States felt that it has to show security to these monarchs, and it presented itself in a big way in a military bases and military pre-positioning of the equipment and training and selling of arms, so on and so forth. So this arms race in this region became a big factor. Because these Arabs had a lot of oil money after the 1973 war, because the oil prices went up and there was a phenomenal flow of resources from all over the world to this region, because oil was needed for the industrial and other developments around the world. So 2/3 of the oil reserves are located in these 8 countries, 6 GCC countries plus Iran, Iraq, and other countries, including North Africa, Libya, and Algeria. So this hydrocarbon resources, these oil resources, are extremely important in the eyes of Europe, in the eyes of America, and also China and Russia. Because China also is a major consumer of oil and gas from this region, and it is competing with other countries. And Russia also has important links, because what these countries decide about production and oil prices are linked to what revenue Russia gets and how developments internally will shape its policy. So in that way, major powers started intervening in a big way. The second event flowing from this after the end of the Soviet Union was the belief among the Americans that they are the only superpower now left after the end of the Soviet Union. And they are the leaders of the rules-based order, that they will decide how the world has to be shaped. So the neocons in America, they thought that it is an American century. So they flexed their military muscle from different countries, first in Somalia, where they had very bad experience. Then in Iran, they tried to intervene, that also failed. So these events led them to different countries in different shapes with intervention and military projection of their military power in different theaters, starting after the events with 9/11, with Afghanistan, they intervened, and then in Iraq, and then Syria came, Libya came. Then, of course, you have Sudan and Yemen and so on and so forth. So all of these countries, wherever there was a sympathetic response to the Iranian Revolution or to American support to the dictators or monarchs in this region, there was this polarization in the region. On the one hand, you had American-supported monarchies. On the other hand, you had the Russian or Chinese-supported republics, whether it is Libya or Algeria or Iraq or Syria or Sudan or Yemen or Somalia, so on and so forth. So this polarization was manipulated, and all those opponents of America were systematically invaded, and their political systems were overthrown, and the civil war type situation arose in Somalia, Yemen, and Libya, Sudan, Syria, Iraq, you name all of these countries. Now, lastly, coming to India, in 1973, the oil prices increased 4 times from less than $1.5, it became $8 overnight. And the 5-year plan, which was in place, was completely disrupted. Mrs. Gandhi didn't know how to sustain the 5-year plan and at the same time pay for this huge extra cost for the oil, which we had to import because we are an oil deficient country. So this explains the reason why there were strikes and demonstrations. 73, the Jayaprakash Narayan movement, the strike by police, and all of these problems, economic problems, and the stagnation in the economy. It affected our economic growth very badly. The rise in oil prices in 1973. This is the first oil shock which we got, and it disrupted our economic development. Then the Iranian Revolution was the second oil shock. Because from $8 now it became $14 to $16, doubled. Even if you are willing to pay, there was no oil because after the revolution, the Iranian oil stopped. There was complete blockade of the supply of oil. And the third shock was Iran and Iraq got into a war, 8-year-long war. So the production from Iraq also disappeared. So we were buying large quantities of oil from Iran and Iraq, and the Soviet Union also was supplying on behalf of the Saddam regime in Iraq. So 3 sources of supplies we lost immediately, and there was terrible problem. Those of us, I still remember long queues in the petrol station. Even if you had money, which was 3 times, there was no petrol, there was no diesel. The cost of transportation, inflation had skyrocketed. So the oil shock, these 3 oil shocks were followed by the 4th oil shock when Iraq invaded Kuwait. Because the bulk of the kerosene, bulk of the diesel came from Kuwait. So all these shocks affected us economically. Although after 73, because these Gulf countries had a lot of oil money, petro-dollars, they started the development process and they needed Indian labor. So millions of them, lakhs of them went and got lucrative jobs. Now the number is about 9 million. 90 lakh Indians are working in GCC countries alone. About 3.2 in UAE, about 3 million in Saudi Arabia, and about 1 million each in Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, other countries. All put together, there are 90 lakh Indians. And out of this, the profile has changed from construction workers to educated. The skilled workers now constitute 62% of the total workforce there. This means they are in the managerial position, teachers, scientists, doctors, engineers, transport, so many sectors. There's not a single sector in these Gulf countries where you don't find Indians.
They are leading the business groups out.
Yeah.
Lulu and Alpha.
There are two billionaires, two types of billionaires in the GCC country. One is the Gujarati merchants who went 300 years ago, Oman and Dubai and Bahrain and all. And they were the richest, and they were lending money to the rulers there because they did not have source of income. So these Banias, as they were called, or Bhatiyas as they were called, or Kachis, they were the preferred people, and some of them have got citizenship in Oman and Bahrain. But the other billionaires now are from Kerala, who are into Oman and UAE and other countries. It is estimated now that there are about 72 Indian billionaires in the GCC country. And they have international businesses. It is not just importing there, but they have opened from Canada to New Zealand to Japan to South Africa. Global business. So they have become the hub for importing from India, from China, from Latin America, from Africa, everywhere. And you would be surprised at what Algeria gets. If you find the product from India in Algeria or Libya, it goes through Dubai.
Central Asia also.
Central Asia, Africa. So it is these Gujarati and Malayali businessmen who are now the link between India and the rest of the world. And this brings huge profits to the sheikhs, the rulers there.
And that's why the international relation West Asia is very important for India.
So these workers are an offshoot from the 73 oil price increase, but the negative impact was the high oil prices and gas prices which we had to pay. So now what is happening is we compensate our high oil prices with the remittances sent by the workers. For last count was about $62 billion. And we pay about more than 250 crores to import oil and gas. But what is important is not only the remittances which these workers send, but the trade also. If you put together India's total foreign trade, if you take the 57 OIC countries, Muslim countries who have formed their association, that is the largest bloc, India's trading bloc, much more than America, EU, Russia, or China, in terms of volume, both imports and exports. And within the Islamic countries, it is the GCC countries. And within GCC, it is UAE. $65 billion of trade between India and UAE alone. So if you put together the other 5 countries, it is more than $122 billion. So it's a huge trading partners, India and the GCC countries. And increasingly after 9/11, it is the remittances, the investments. Because these countries have surplus sovereign wealth funds. So they are increasingly investing in Indian infrastructure for the last 10 to 12 years, both governmental investment and private investment increasingly. And Indian billionaires, they also find Indian market as worthy of investment. So you have 3 types of investors: the government, the Arabs, and the Indian community of this region, which is important. And the 4th factor is not many people know food security. We are a population of over 1.4 billion, and we need to produce around 300 million tons of food to feed our population. And to grow this amount, we need chemical fertilizer. We don't have gas. We have the technology, IFCO and others, but we don't have the rock phosphate. So what we do is the existing fertilizer plants, they import rock phosphate from Jordan, from Morocco and other countries. But at the same time, we have established chemical fertilizer plants in Oman, in Egypt, in Algeria, and other countries. And almost 2/3 of our chemical fertilizers comes from this region. So they are very crucial for our food security. You know, about 2 or 3 years ago, in Davangere, there was a problem. The ship which was supposed to bring urea from Oman, because of some technical problem, it was delayed by 15 days.
Because they carried different things.
But that was the sowing season. So the farmers were agitating.
They taken back.
So it became a law and order problem. It led to firing and 2 farmers died.
So much
They said,
dependence.
what are you doing? We need the fertilizer. So this happened across the country. So we have become critically dependent on the arrival of chemical fertilizer. Then we have the maritime security. After the disintegration of Somali government, the piracy there, hijacking of ships also affected. So we need the cooperation of these countries from Oman to Djibouti, Iran and UAE. So these countries are also cooperating because of the growing relationship between India and these Gulf countries. Before Manmohan Singh became Prime Minister, it was just a commercial relationship. The Arabs would sell their oil and we would buy their oil and whatever basmati rice and traditional spices and other things. That was going on without high-level political visits. There were very few, far and few. But it was only after 1998 that regular political visits started. And also, one other important point was gradually the Arab countries realized that their relationship with Pakistan is a liability. It is not helping them because it is leading to extremism. After all these jihadis were unemployed, after the Soviet Union was expelled, so these jihadis came back. The chickens came home for roast. So they realized that Pakistan is exporting the jihadis to their countries and destabilizing. So this Al-Qaeda became a major threat to Saudi monarchy. Every village, every center, the Saudi government was threatened. Not only Saudi Arabia, but also Algeria. There was a large civil war. Sudan, Yemen, Syria. Every country was now full of all these foreign returned degree holders of jihad
From Yemen.
from Pakistan.
Yemen, Pakistan. And all.
So they became very upset with Pakistan for because the jihadis after they became unemployed, they were now moving towards Pakistan and destabilizing. So they arrested and expelled some of them to Guantanamo, some of them to Saudi Arabia and all. So it became a major issue, and Pakistan was seen as not so much of a friend. But after our 91 reforms, economic reforms, and the opening up of the economy, we have done reasonably well. And this has shown the path how private public sector cooperation can bring about reforms from within. And the miracle of India as a major market for these countries, not only for the products, but also for oil and gas that has made them attractive. So now we have strategic relations with Oman, with UAE, with Saudi Arabia, with others. And at the same time, after the end of the Cold War, we established diplomatic relations with Israel. And now with Iran also, we have really good ties. And but still, the problems which originated in Iran and seizure of Kaaba and Afghanistan and Camp David, what is happening to the Palestinians in Gaza, they are all linked to what happened in 1979. So in that way, not only these countries were affected, but also America, Europe, but India also.
Everyone.
So this is in a nutshell, the global perspective from the region to the Europeans and India, back to Davangere also.
And actually,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I want to add one point. Recently, you must have heard how the duties are firing these Americans and all those, and even Israelis. And if you look at the Houthis, who are the Houthis? They are financed by the Iranians. Houthis are the Shia. So that's why in my book there's a chapter on Shia crescent. And that's very important if you read that. Yeah, how that Iran is became very powerful country of Middle East now. After this invasion of Iraq, because Iraq became the first Shia country after the invasion. They wanted to bring democracy and what.
Just a footnote, you see, this 9/11 happened because the Americans, instead of rebuilding Afghanistan, after the exit of Soviet Union, they ran away.
Yeah.
And they had only mud houses, they have gone. They thought that they have sacrificed and they needed to rebuild their economy and the country, so on and so forth. But there was nothing, no aid, nothing, they forgot. And all the money the Pakistanis misused. So that's how they became radicalized. It is the same thing happening in Yemen. After bombing for more than 10 years, the Saudis, they destroyed every bit and piece of Yemen. So that is how now they are very angry with the Americans. If they are firing at the American ships, it is because the Saudis, they dumped them. The Americans dumped them. So we will see what you will do. So that vindictive attitude has come because of the bombing and the negligence of.
Actually, the one important area for the student to study the rise of Iran, in spite of all the sanctions. That is a very important area for research. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful and interesting and also awesome inputs. You took us to history, and your inputs made us to enhance our knowledge, and we felt that we are in the classroom with the.
I also got the knowledge of.
Yes. And you made us to think many more things, and you focused, both of you people focused on many issues. And sir, we have a West Asia in World Affairs for postgraduate as a core course subject, sir. And in that rise of Iran also is there, and GCC. Always, sir, will be talking about guiding me to talk about the GCC countries, and we included, sir. And I'm rethinking to include many more things which are left out from us in the syllabus. And thank you once again, sir. And further moving to second session, that is the young scholar session, sir. This time, this is the first trial, sir. We are including the young scholars, and they are very interested and eager to know many things from the West Asia from your end, sir. And how do you like, sir? After the second session, would you like to receive the questions, sir?
Wholeheartedly, I welcome.
I have a
Commitment.
commitment. So I wish you all the success, but I will be here. For anything, I will come. Okay. So I will be here. I'm taking leave of.
Thank you, sir.
It's very nice. You are here today?
Yeah.
Personally?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Thank you. Very nice. Yeah. Please. Come, come.
Now I request Dr. Sarvamitra Kalita. She is the faculty of Department of International Relations. She worked on Latin America. And now I request Sarvamitra Kalita to moderate the second session, that is a young scholar session. She will be moderating and she will receive the questions and first the young scholars will talk, sir. Then we will go to the questions.
So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Department of International Relations, Maharaja Skandu, I welcome you, sir. I welcome Sir Pasha Sir and Madam for the gracious presence. The first speaker is Esther, who is a postgraduate student. She is from Nigeria, basically. She is from our department only, so she will be speaking a few lines on it. Over to you, Esther.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. It's a privilege to have you here. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Esther Mako from Nigeria. I'm in the Department of International Relations, Maharaja College, University of Mysore. So I must say that this book has enlightened me and other of my colleagues. It is very, very insightful and thought-provoking, and I am privileged and honored to tap from your vast wealth of privilege. Thank you, sir. And the internet's jihad mobilization caught my attention. So in the book, you provide an incisive examination of how the internet and social media have been utilized for jihad mobilization and radicalization of Muslim youth globally from the 1990s till date. So I also analyzed deeply the ideological messaging and recruitment tactics employed online by this extremist group seeking to radicalize and enlist vulnerable individuals to their cause. Also, you give illuminating insight to how these groups are leveraging digital tools and platforms to spread their rhetoric and foster a sense of community and spur people into actions across global boundaries. And importantly, sir, you also avoid reductive assumptions and highlighted the nuances, the factor that compel some destructive paths in the name of religious duty or identity. So I have a question. My question is, in your book, you have talked about the role of AI in the spread of extremism. With the current developments we are seeing each day in AI, artificial intelligence, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Can you hear little problem in hearing? Can you explain what is the question?
The question is about AI, the artificial intelligence and
Yeah.
its impact on terrorism. That is,
Yeah,
Rise of
with the
jihad.
rise
of jihad.
No, actually, AI came after 2010, okay? And at that time, the use of internet, that's what I have a chapter on,
Yes.
how the radicalization is spread. And if you look at the profile of the in America or Europe, those family migrate there from Asia, Africa, or somewhere. Even there was a case where a girl, if I referred, she was from Somalia and she was an American Somalian, and she joined and gone back to the Islamic State. And she was getting, she asked her father that I have to give the dollars for my admission, and there she used that dollars to travel to Turkey and then enter into that kind of a thing. And she was totally radicalized by the internet, because most of our families which migrate to the Western culture, so they keep their daughters and sons away from that thing. Because in America, they have as a young student, they have their own culture, the weekend parties and this, and they don't allow them to join that thing. So that kind of a problem comes, cultural problem, and they ask them to stay home. So home, what they will do as a young student? So they sit with the laptop or the computers, and there's hundreds of websites which were radicalizing them. And that's why a large number of Europeans, Asians and Africans have fallen that trap and they joined the Islamic State. So that, and now another thing I tell you, recently there is a book coming wave. It is there available these days about Mustafa Suleiman. He's he's an American, but he's from Syria. And he's written how the AI, because he was the first person who made AI company in 2010. And he became the latter vice president of the Google. And now he's written a wonderful book, The Coming Waves. He talks about right from the beginning, how the waves was revolution, industrial revolution taking, and then the people, they don't know the consequences of that. And that's how he talked about how this artificial intelligence can use in putting up your whole character. You can change your voice and change your shape and all those kind of things and create all that thing. So that is the misuse of that kind of thing, of that technology which has come. So that I think everybody should read that book, Coming Wave.
Okay. So I have another question. So
Second question.
okay.
Yeah.
My second question, sir. With the
Can you speak a little louder? You're a young lady. Come
my
on.
second question, sir.
Yeah.
In the page on the chapter on jihad mobilization, international jihad mobilization,
Yeah.
you mentioned that the Islamic states have been physically defeated.
Caliphate.
Yeah, no, the Islamic State has been physically defeated. Physically.
Physically
Yes, sir.
defeated.
Yeah, been defeated. So my question is, can the extremist forces be eradicated completely?
No, not yet. Now you see the Islamic State, Khorasan. Khorasan is the region, it is Afghanistan, Iran, that portion, and they call themselves. And the recent attack on the Iran is done by, and they've taken the responsibility of the Islamic State of Khorasan. So that's why President Obama said that we can defeat them, but we can degrade them, but we cannot defeat them. Because ideology always stays there in the mind of the people. And if the circumstances are there, then they proliferate and they do all kind of things. So it is a long process where you can remove that kind of ideology by bringing another ideology. So that is what is happening now globally. It comes slowly. I'm not saying that all of a sudden certain ideology is spread out, and it goes out very slowly from the people.
Like Hamas,
Yeah.
Netanyahu knows that he cannot defeat, neither he can eradicate Hamas. Because
Yeah.
in ideology, every Palestinian, whether he's in Gaza or West Bank or anywhere, he feels he's part of the national liberation struggle, the resistance
Yeah.
for the occupation of their territory by Israel. So you cannot eradicate. Like Boko Haram in your country,
Yeah, Boko
you
Haram.
can defeat in some areas, but the ideas remain there.
What is Boko Haram? It is the similar as Islamic State. They have a different names in different parts of the world. And in Somalia, it is known as something else. What is that name?
About
Shabab. So they have different names, but the ideology is same. And that is coming from the Salafism and Wahhabism. That is really that kind of creed that gives the jihadis. Jihad is their main architecture, in that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Very nice. Have you read the whole book now?
Not the whole book.
Okay.
So like I have another question.
Yeah.
The question is like how mostly the educated ones are indoctrinated into this idea. Because you see in India, the NII is catching with engineers and other people who are highly educated and they are getting into this. So like, because education gives us the reasoning power to differentiate between good and bad.
Right.
So then why mostly the people who are into this are highly educated?
Here's a good question. Because how we're, very intelligent people and all those. So because what happens, this kind of ideology, which is spread out in a certain way. So, who are the people who are affected? They were educated, but they were coming from those kind of families where their parents have restricted their relationship with the other communities. So that is how they become very inward type of, and they spend more time on the internet and watching different kind of websites, different websites they put up and all. Magazines, Al Qaeda has put up the magazines and Islamic State has the magazine, and they motivate. And if you remember that marathon of Boston boys, they were from Chechnya. They brought up in America, but they were influenced by these books which on the internet, and that's why in cooker and they can make a bomb and all these kind of things over there, and that's how they did it. Otherwise, there was no need of doing it, but because they come from that family her mother was very liberal kind of a thing, his father was there, and they acted like that because fully, and the people, when they know that these guys had done it, they were surprised that how these boys can do that also. Because internally they were radicalized, and that plays some creed also, the Islamic teaching also of that particular creed. If I'm Hanafi Sunni Islam, then they teach us that you respect the other faith, and it teaches that you go to the bazaars and all that, respect Sufism and that spirituality. But humbly kind of this Sufism and Wahhabism teaches that you and I tell you one intolerance incident in America. I was there in Detroit, and I visited. Detroit is a big Muslim population. Arabs are there and South Asia. Arabs is a huge hub of Arabs. They call the American Arabs because there was the industries and all that. So there was a big Islamic center. So somebody introduced me that me brother is from Nicaragua, and he's converted to Islam. I go, okay, nice to meet you, brother. Then I asked him, when you got it converted? He said, no, sir, I'm not converted, I'm reverted back. I go, what do you mean by reverted back? And then he told me that every child in the world born as a Muslim, he may be in a Hindu family or a Christian or Jewish family. So he became a Jew or Christian, but he is a Muslim. So that kind of a concept has gone into his head, young American. If I'm reverted back. So that is the kind of thing was happening in the 90s and all that. And all these youngsters who are very smart, they're doing engineering, medical degrees in American or European colleges, they were attracted towards it. And they thought that this is the way we can defeat, they have done so much bad, these Americans and Europeans, to our culture, to our countries. That kind of a feeling, religion also. That's why it is in their back of mind. And that's why they are signing for jihad. Radicalization. And that is my chapter of radicalization. I'm giving some examples of this in that.
Now I request.
And this African example is very good. That is, she was a very good student. And they were from Somalia or somewhere, I think.
Yes.
Somalia. And she signed for that, and she, without telling her parents, and she has gone to Syria.
Now I request Deepak Narayan Bharadwaj, who is a first-year student from International Relations, to share his thoughts on the book.
Namaste, sir. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, my name is Deepak Narayan. I'm from Mysore, but I've studied mostly in Andhra Pradesh, and I'm a first-year postgrad student of International Relations. It's been absolutely wonderful to be listening to the two of you here today. And in my experience of the book so far, one thing that I really appreciate is it's given a very academic nuance to a lot of terms we've been hearing since we were children. We've always heard these words go around, but never really understood them from a colloquial sense or an academic sense. So it was very interesting that you actually contextualized that in the form of this book, and it sort of adds that perspective, which is really helpful both for me as a reader and a student. So thank you for that. And I also like how the book addresses all facets of the issue, both the fundamentalist, the traditional, and also the changes it's experiencing with digitization and how technology itself has become a tool in this whole process. I think in my experience in the book so far, you've not left any stone unturned, which is really good. And I like that the focus point, like we were discussing, the seismic year, like you called it, 1979. As a student who's reading this and trying to understand this whole subfacet of international relations and also the social aspects of it, the economic aspects of it, I think having that one focal point as a reader was a really good experience for me as well. So thank you for this book and sort of centering it around it. I also had two questions, if, with your permission, if I can ask you. The first one would be like, in your research, what in your opinion led to the events of 1979? What were the trends that you observed pre-1979, and in a way, could it have been predicted?
Okay, I'll answer in two parts. Because before 79, all West Asian or Middle East, because if you are in America, they call Middle East. If we are here, we call West Asia. So all countries are calling themselves Islamic countries. They never say that they are a Sunni country or a Shia country. Actually, in my analysis, Iranian Revolution is the game changer. And since after that, they were calling the Shia countries and Sunni countries. So that thing has come into play into the region. And it's still there. I'm not saying it's over. The Houthis attack is that's why the other Americans say, okay, because Houthis are Shia. Okay, so they always connect with the Iran. Whether Iran is funding them or not, we don't know. Because Iran says, oh, we are not funding them. But they connect with that. Same as Hezbollah. They are also Shia. Same Assad, the junior Assad.
Bashar.
Bashar al-Assad group, and same in Iraq. Many groups are there. So all these countries were, empowered by the Iranians. All these groups, and that is really a game changer in that. Before that, it was not there. It was there. There were Sunni and Shia. That was there. Just like I can give you an example from India. Whether people like it or not. Here, the Hindus and Muslims were living together since, I don't know, thousands of years. The people may have their heart, okay, but now they were saying, oh, Muslims did this thing bad, or what happens and all that kind of thing is is a narrative in North India more than here. So that is there in their back of mind, but it is never on the surface. And similarly, these things were there.
Just a footnote to that, I narrated from 52.
Yeah.
The dictatorship, the Savak, and all the atrocities which Shah's regime committed. He muzzled every source of opposition. And he tried to revive pre-Islamic things, like Nowruz, for example, or many festivals which had nothing to do with Islam. So many Muslims, practicing Muslims, they said, what is this? You are going away from Islam. Whether it is other things, Western culture like casinos and this and that, that was a side effect. But many of the pre-Islamic things which Persia had were being imposed on them, on Muslims. So there was a sort of revulsion among the ordinary Shias, particularly.
Right, sir. And thank you. My second question was more from a student perspective. At college, we're constantly encouraged to research and write. That is one thing we're always encouraged to do. I just wanted to ask you about your research methods in preparation for this book, and second, in terms of your writing process, because it is a very culturally sensitive topic. So what was your writing process and your research process?
Number one, I'm not having any background of social science and history. I'm from a science background. So what I've read a lot of books about these events and written by Americans, Europeans, and all that. And then I tried to analyze that from my own perspective, how does the things happen. So that is the whole process is gone into that. Because if you are a historian, then you are a little bit biased because you know the history background. Because I would tell you frankly, when I was the Vice Chancellor of Calicut University, there was a group, it was in 2006, there was a group who invited me for a function. It's known as Selfie Organization. I was not knowing what is Selfie Organization even then. Then I tried to research, it wasn't there. So that things will also come back into Kerala Muslim. Kerala Muslims were not there, they were Sufi type of Muslims. And but after this, they started going to Saudi Arabia and all that, and they are coming back, even here in Karnataka, and you see everywhere. So they are influenced by that. Those in that time, not after 2017, the things have changed in Saudi Arabia. Before 2017, there was this kind of a creed was there. So they totally changed the the tafsir of Quran, what we call the analysis of the Quran, but from the perspective of Salafis and Wahhabis. Similarly, the Hadith, the saying of Prophet. So that was the literature they totally changed and flooded globally because they have a lot of money, $2 billion or $3 billion. They were their budget annually, and they were traveling, giving lectures, and in London or England, the first mosque was founded by Begum of Bhopal in 1889, something like that. And now there are 2,000 mosques. Who constructed? I went to Saul in connection of glaciers, not there. And I saw a mosque in Saul. Everywhere. Yeah. Remote places. There are hardly any Muslim in South Korea. So like that, and in America, there are more than 3,000 mosques, all funded by them, Saudis. And this happens after 79. Before that, there was hardly any, so that is totally because of money power, petrodollar. $2 billion for an organization to fund all these kind of research is a big money. And that's why they flooded the whole market globally. And even in India, in North India, and particularly they have given zakat funds and all those funds to madrasas and all that. And that's why they have changed it. Their thinking. So Indian Muslims always have, or South Asian Muslims always have Hanafi. But now they are more this kind of a creed. Some, still I believe that not many, but they were inroads. And they changed totally. I remember in Aligarh University, I studied when I was a student, there was nobody wears the hijab in Aligarh University. Now 100% the girls are in hijab. It's totally changed. Similarly, in other institutions, I've seen the Muslim institutions. So that changes has come in my lifetime. What I've seen now, how they are changing because of this creed of Islam.
Yeah, I said I was telling you about Egypt.
Egypt.
First time when I went in 1985 in Cairo University, there was not a single girl student who would wear this.
Yeah.
But when I went in 99 as a diplomat, there was a sea change. Sea change. I mean, I could not believe with my eyes that Egyptian girls in Cairo University were wearing burqa. 100%. Within a matter of less than 15 years. So the transformation
was big.
Fast and sudden. All this to counter the Iranian Shiism. That
they mixed up with the other values, just like Fatiha, and they were against that. And that's why they stopped the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. India and every places, Miladun Nabi. Now is no more there because they stopped it.
Even graves going to
graves and all these Sufi madars and all that, they were totally against that. So that kind of a change they brought with the power of the money. Money has a big role to play because they can flood it whole thing with their books, with their lectures, training programs and all that. You come and have a 2 months course and then go back, you get the air ticket, hotels and blah, 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 and then go back. So that is really has happened with the Islamic world. Islamic world was not that bad before 79. Everybody was in.
All this with the encouragement of the Americans.
Yeah, Americans had played a big role.
They benefited from the Saudi money to expand and propagate Wahhabism.
Yeah.
For the strategic global.
Yeah,
agenda.
and I've also mentioned the Hillary Clinton's statement when she was the foreign minister of America or the Secretary of State, she said that when the Russians have gone, we left our stingers there and jihadis there, and we come back very happy. So these stingers and the jihadis has created this havoc globally, and what we are reaping, what we sow. Because they were responsible, Americans are responsible. Because they thought that Middle East, just like Korea and Vietnam, the ones who live from there, then they will go to the normal life. It's a very complicated region with so many factors. And what happens then after the invasion in Iraq, you see, the Islamic State is anchored totally. And everybody said that you don't displace this guy, Saddam Hussein, the whole world, the entire region will be affected. But the American thought we will bring the democracy here, they will be elected. So when election was there, the Shia are in power because they are in majority. Yeah. So this is all related issues. You cannot separate from one to other.
In the name of democracy, always America will be playing this game.
Yeah.
It will initiate everything and immediately it will leave the country. In case of Afghanistan also, it happened the same thing, sir.
No, they say that everybody, every country, even in America, the democracy is faulting now. How Mr. Trump is behaving and like, it is not like that. Yes.
So the next is Shameri Pereira. So she's a graduate student from our University of
Okay.
College. So she will say.
You are from which state? You are from Karnataka?
No,
No, sir, I'm from Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka.
Oh, Sri Lanka. Yeah, Sri Lanka case was also mentioned in the book. You remember? You read, Sri Lanka, there is there was a family, very rich family, traders and all that, and they involved in this. The bombing of the Christian church and
Yes.
all that. I mentioned that.
So, Mr. Paul, I will take the moment
Speak
to
little louder.
express my gratitude to the book of False Lines in the Faith. So, the book has been enlightening for the student of ours, and also the key interest that captivated my interest in this book is about the origin of Muslim youth radicalization in Europe and America. So you have very well explained about how Muslim migration happened in the world from Spain, Britain, France, Canada, and how it continued in those countries. So nowadays there are billions of Muslims living all over the world. So the radicalization of Muslim communities is a complex issue that has need to study in various fields. And some of the factors that have been identified as contributing to radicalization include identity crises and discrimination against Muslim communities, and the power of ideas, fundamentalist ideology, and the influence of radical imams and conservative mass have also been identified as the contributing factors to radicalization. So my question maybe it is out of the content, but while reading the book, I got one question in my mind that countries like US and Europe that are Christian dominant countries and also not multicultural. And do you think Muslim immigrants who were settling in these countries started these revolutionized or radical movements because they were marginalized and deprived their religious freedom? And the second one is, you have mentioned the 21st century technology has involved to the terrorist like ISIS involvement also with the technology. Can you elaborate more a little bit?
In France, you are talking. France or somewhere?
No, ISIS more than judiciary movements in technology.
What happens, that is actually linked to the Saudi World Muslim League, which is funding them. In France, Muslims are there right from earlier times. It's not now new people there. And there's the largest number of Muslim population is in France. Okay, they have a big mosque here in Paris and all that. But the radicalization started when they entered into France. these groups, and they started giving them lectures and changing their, interpretation of the Quran and Hadith, and mobilizing these people and funding their mosque, because these Saudi not only giving lectures, they are funding the mosque construction and doing all kind of it. Okay, they are very well organized and all. So that is how the Muslims of France had changed after this, after 79, and they started, and now you see that they attacked the music concert and other things in France, and they attacked some people in the metro or railway or somewhere. There are many terrorist attack in France after this. So why that happened? Because France, they speak the same language, they have the same culture. The France is, of course, is the French. So the Muslims also speak French there. Okay, and sometimes you cannot identify who's a real one, who is a migrant, because there are a lot of migrants from North Africa, in France. So this radicalization which is happened, and then they also impacted by the internet and all those things, by cyberspace and all. So they were radicalized to that kind of system. Earlier they were not. And now also, when the Macron has come to and now they stopped, I think they banned this hijab also in the schools there. And many countries are doing it. I think, except America, many European countries are banned.
Blasphemy laws.
You are from?
No, I was mentioning blasphemy.
Yeah.
Blasphemy laws.
Blasphemy laws. So that really radicalized the European Muslims, young Muslims, and that's why if you see the strategic in the Islamic State, who are the people who are fighting for Islamic State, they are European, mostly Europeans and British, and from France. You name any country, and the people were there from there. I was surprised when I was seeing the list of those people who has come to join the Islamic State, and at one time the Damascus airport was a busy airport, and they opened just like you have a conference, and then you put up somebody to check in those people who are coming from different flights and joining the Islamic State, and they were sending them. So all that time, things has happened, and once they ruled it, right from Raqqa was their capital, and they were having a big rule, and they were actually captured the oil also of Iraq, certain areas of oil. And then you also read the book Last Girl. Have you heard about the Last Girl? That is Yazdi. What is that? Her name is Nida Mustafa or something. She got the Nobel Prize also, and she is in America now. And how she escaped, she has written everything in that book, and how she was, captured by the Islamic State, and all kind of a thing happened with their families, and they killed them, their brothers and all that, and only the girls, young girls, they have taken as slaves, and then all bad things happened to them, and then she escaped via Kurdistan and gone to Germany, and then gone to Geneva to talk about the atrocities committed by them, and then taken up by that famous human right, lawyer Amal, who she has married now, the film actor Clooney. Yeah, she's Lebanese, smart lady, and she fought for their cases in the international court and all. It's a very interesting book. You read Last Girl. And then you know about all these things. When you are asking the question, you will not have any question about this Islamic State.
Now I request Ala Nasser, who is a PhD research scholar from our Ala is yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she is a PhD research scholar from the department of
Okay.
and she's from Maharajas College. So her topic is titled The Impact of Political Refugees on International Relations
Okay.
and International Responsibility Towards them.
The recent one or the old one?
No, that is her topic. She's
No,
working.
the refugee, the migration which is happening now or after the
I think she's
serious
the
crisis?
best person.
You will elaborate.
It's
Working under this.
Okay, that's great time, great topic.
So she will be
Recently
sharing
she
her
done
What
thoughts.
is the topic?
Like,
Yes.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a good topic, I tell you,
Thank you.
because this is a global,
It's a trend issue, this days, usually around war from Syria to Europe, Palestine to Europe also. I saw this is the trend issue.
I have only 4 to 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Ana Ansar from Palestine. I'm doing PhD in International Relations Department in Mason University. I'm so pleased to participate in a panel discussion about book by Professor Akram Hafidin, Fault Lines in the Faith. At this moment, I would like to extend my thanks and gratitude to the professor for his effort and valuable contribution, and to encourage researchers to read his work and delve into it. The author mentioned in his book, The Arab Spring led to a gradual shift in political ideology in the Middle East and increased the sectarian conflict. And the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran has between Sunni and Shia, and don't relate it about economic, because both of them it's rich. So I have questions. My question is, how did fault lines in the faith particularly when Iran become highest powerful in the Middle East, affected the faith-Palestinian issue?
how Iran became the power in the Middle East.
How this will affect the Palestinian issue?
The Palestinian issue,
Yes.
okay. You know, Iran was, of course, as you said, having wild resources equally as Saudi Arabia. It's for sanction, but they are selling to South America and China and some other countries. So they are getting money. It's not like that. They are not getting money. But these groups which are there in the different countries, Shia groups, which are aligned with the Iran, that is making them more powerful. Okay, whether in Yemen or Syria or Iraq or Lebanon, they are the 4 important Arab countries where they have their own groups which they are supporting them, and they are, whenever they want to, use them. Just like now they are using Houthis and Hezbollah, but they are not saying that when somebody asks Iranian foreign minister, say we have nothing to do with that, the Houthi problem. That is the level of their problem. But in fact, in reality, all money coming from that and technology is coming from that. And they are very smart, Iranians, as you know. They have developed their own drones and all. Even Russia is using their drones. So their missiles, even Hamas is using, that is manufactured by Iranian. But I understand, and I read some of the New York Times report, that Hamas has got some good technologies, and they are also capable of assembling good missiles. They are doing it. They have factories in the underground tunnels. So that kind of a thing, which they could not break up, is still fighting about how many months now? 2 months? 4 months? Yeah, and they could not break into their tunneling system, which is, as you told me, that these tunnels were constructed by Germans and all that, their friends, East Germans and all that. So all these things, what is that second part of your question?
How this is affect the Palestinian issues? This is
Yeah.
second,
Say, Iran is very consistently supporting Palestinian issue. You will find in the history of Iranian, whether this regime or earlier regime, they always support the Palestinian issue. And Palestinian issue, now they are supporter of Hamas also. They give more money and other things and training and all kinds of. So, Hamas is a Sunni, they are Shia.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So because of their larger goal in the Middle East, they are not sectarian, as the people think that only Iran will support only the Shia groups. They are supporting a Sunni group. Okay, and so that is where the Israelis are very upset. And if you read Netanyahu many times warned that I will attack them, I will bomb them, and they are making a nuclear bomb and things like that. But he has no guts to do that, because if he does once attack Iran, then the war will be larger in the whole Middle East, and it will not be like very small, contained war. So that's why he afraid. But he talks about it, always threaten them. Okay, we'll do it. And now he made this Abraham Accord to isolate Iran. You remember that they made the relationship with the Arab countries, and but that was upset after Saudi Arabia and the China has brokered their relationship between Iran and all that. So Israel was not very happy about that, because the Iran is coming to the center. Yeah, so this Abraham Accord is all in shambles now, because they wanted with Saudi Arabia, but the Hamas attacked on 7th October and everything is gone back into the time, and nobody is talking about the Abraham Accords now. So UAE and some other Bahrain and all, and Kuwait, Morocco has signed.
Not Kuwait,
Morocco has signed here. So these are the actually, these issues are still open. There is no end for this, what is going on. How it will take a shape, I don't know. Nobody knows it. How it will change. It may create a bigger, wider conflict in the region and engulf the whole country, or not. Because the way Israel is behaving, it is, no one, the whole global civil society is against that. And no countries is liking that thing. And that's why South Africa has gone to the international court to say that you call them as a total open genocide of the whole community. And it is the fact that you are killing every day and not giving them food, and then you destroying their houses and you killed 25,000 people. So it is open.
We have 1 minute to answer. This is a very important question, Allah. Because you see, the root cause of problems from 79 is the loss of Iran by America. They lost Iran.
Yeah.
So the Americans are trying to overthrow the Iranian regime. It is the regime change agenda. They want to overthrow the mullahs and get back the Shah of Iran and the strategic asset which they have.
Democratic Iran.
So what Iran is doing, it is going on the offensive to protect its regime. What it is doing, it is supporting the Palestinian cause. To support the Palestinian cause, there is a distance. So they have supported Hezbollah. They have supported Hamas. They have supported Islamic Jihad. They have supported several groups in Iraq, in Houthis. So all these are reaction by Iran to put pressure on Israel and America. That look, if you threaten our regime, we also have these non-state actors.
They are all non-state.
And they are all equipped. Hamas is not a state actor. Houthis are not a state actor. Hezbollah is not, and all the several groups in Iraq. So Iran is using these to threaten Israel and America. But look, if you create problems for us, we have these allies.
Allies with us.
And they are very active. It's a very smart way. This is offense is the best part of defense. Like Hamas, what they did on October 7 was not just to create a problem. It is to bring to the attention of the world there is a problem of occupation. We are living under occupation. Our problem is being ignored And Saudi Arabia is going to sign a peace treaty with
Yeah.
Israel after Bahrain and Emirat and Morocco and Sudan and all. Before that, Egypt and Jordan and Palestinians themselves. So all of these things are used by Iran as a strategic weapon to prevent itself being overthrown. Not that it is weak countries, they have equipped themselves, they
Yeah.
are very strong, but they also have these additional
Yeah, the
levers.
strategic plan for the Middle East, that they are doing very well with that. Yeah.
Thank you. I request Rohini Rinan, she is in online mode. She is a PhD scholar from NIAS faculty. She will be sharing her thoughts
Okay,
on the book.
okay,
Am I audible?
Yes.
yeah.
Very good afternoon to everyone. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Iqbal sir on the book. It's a deeply informative book that delves into some of the key developments that have shaped and are still shaping the politics of the Middle East. I'm not an expert on Middle East, but I do follow key developments in contemporary Iran, Pakistan and Afghanistan on a daily basis as a part of my work here. Maybe I can say a little bit about myself. I'm a doctoral student at the National Institute of Advanced Studies in the Science, Technology and International Relations program. But I'm also a research assistant and I coordinate a publication that's called the Pakistan Reader. We look at contemporary developments in Pakistan on a daily basis. And I also, as I mentioned, I also cover Iran and Afghanistan on a daily basis. So I think for this discussion, I have identified a few themes that I wanted to center it around. Firstly, the book's focus and emphasis on a fundamental de-radicalization of Muslims really resonated with me. I think it's an excellent long-term counter-terrorism strategy and often ignored. In fact, I would emphatically argue that any counter-terrorism strategy that ignores the process of de-radicalization is incomplete at its own peril. However, I'm just a little skeptical of whether countries, and mostly Western countries, would rally behind this, given that at least publicly they emphasize the multicultural and cosmopolitan nature of their polities. Also, is the population that has already been radicalized would, let's say, be receptive to the kind of de-radicalization we are talking about, especially if we remember the backlash that the hijab ban in France received. So maybe if you could comment a little bit on that. And I have the other question that popped up in my head when I was reading about this is the US had obliged the Saudis in return for oil. But what after? I mean, once they diversified their energy resources and they found shale gas, shouldn't there have been some shift in their policy? And so is it only because their agenda is to counter Iran in the region? Or fostering a relationship between Israel and Saudi Arabia is the most important goal, which supersedes, let's say, the US's national security imperatives. The second theme that I wanted to discuss is I was quite intrigued by the projection you made regarding the possibility of an Arab nuclear bomb in the future, funded by Saudi Arabia, and the strategic partnership between Israel and Saudi Arabia. I mean, we know now that after the events of October 7 and the ensuing fight, that process, the effort that the US was making in fostering the relationship between Israel and the Saudis have essentially been derailed, even though the US has reiterated that the Saudis still want to go through with it. Do you think that Saudi Arabia would take a chance after the recent war? Because there were 2-3 key developments. One was the rapprochement, I think, that you also talked about, brokered by the Chinese between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And the second is that the Houthis are right on Saudi Arabia's borders and they have joined the war on the side of the Palestinians. And Saudi Arabia has been fighting the Houthis in Yemen for more than a decade now. So do you think in this context, Saudi Arabia will take that chance? And most importantly, as you mentioned, Saudi Arabia and Iran have been fighting for political, economic, and religious leadership in the region. So do you think Saudi Arabia will jeopardize that by sort of being seen as somebody who's not rallying around the Palestinians, a cause that is very close to the Arab population? And even if the war had not broken out and most Arab countries had normalized their relationship with Israel, do you think the Saudis would have gone as far as building a nuclear bomb to counter Iran? The third key theme that I wanted to discuss is that we have witnessed a cycle of radicalization in the last few decades. Religious ideology certainly is an important driver of that. But I think the collective historical memory of humiliation, subjugation, and most importantly, violence has often not been emphasized upon. It's one thing that you're ready to die for an ideology, and quite another to lose, let's say, family members, generations of them, and carry that memory through generations. I would like to hear your comments on that also, if time permits. And lastly, do you think the year 2023 is going to be another pivotal year, just like 1979? And what aspects of projections made in the book would you maybe change in the light of recent events? And I would also like to thank Bharti ma'am and the University of Mysore for having me. Thank you.
Need 1 hour to answer.
You answer.
When you put 2 years, you have to answer them. They don't have the time now. But briefly.
So I'm really sorry. I had too many questions just because of the word.
Yeah, when we come on Friday, you can repeat this to the author.
Definitely, sir.
Briefly, there are 2 things on behalf of the author. The normalization process between Saudi Arabia and Israel is at the moment frozen. But from the reports, what we hear is Anthony Blinken has been assured by MBS that it will be revived. And it is an important plank of Joe Biden for getting re-elected. So my belief is that sooner than later, once the dust settles in Gaza, and if it doesn't erupt in the northern sector with Hezbollah, by say summer, probably we'll have some movement on the Saudi-Israeli normalization. Briefly, this is what my impression is. The second one is, see, as part of the Saudi-Iranian normalization, one of the demands of Saudis with the Americans is the nuclear plant, nuclear energy plants which they want to establish. And although there is this Chinese-mediated Saudi-Iranian rapprochement, but still the Saudis are fearful of Iran and its nuclear capability, hidden or proven, whatever. So the Saudis are determined to become a nuclear power, no matter what happens to American presence in the Gulf, or what reassurances Israel might give directly or indirectly to the security and stability of the Saudi kingdom. So they are determined to get a nuclear plant and also the sophisticated weapons from the Americans as part of the deal to get a normalization effect with Saudi Arabia. And the third one is, you see, as the author pointed out, the Americans use Saudi Arabia to defeat its rival Soviet Union in the Cold War by using Wahhabism and money and so on and so forth. But they realized that, like the Arab countries realized with the entry of Al-Qaeda in their own domain, after 9/11, the Americans realized that this Wahhabi cult has to be contained. So that's how all presidents since 9/11 have been putting pressure on Saudi Arabia to moderate your extremist Islam. The word moderation came from America, and it started from their demand to revise the syllabus, school syllabus, madrasas, and a whole lot of radical changes which Saudis have brought to some extent by King Abdullah until he was alive from 2006 when he came to power after Fahad died. And they were modest, like he allowed the women to participate in the municipal elections. He nominated them in the Saudi Majlis Ashura and gave other assurances that they can have their own passport without requiring a consent from the parents. So these were accelerated when MBS's father, King Salman, came to power. Now the Saudi women are much more liberated and on par with the other Arab women, if I can say so. Number one, the Saudi women can drive now. They can get a driving license on their own. They don't need the permission of the husband or father or whatever. Second one, they can get their own passports. They don't need the permission now of the husband or father or whoever guardian is. Third one, they can go abroad. Earlier, a male member had to accompany, even if she is a PhD holder or she has invitation from Oxford, America, anywhere, she could not go alone. She had to have a male companion, whether husband or brother or father or anybody. So that requirement has been given up. And now the Saudi women can start their own businesses on their own. They can have banks and industries and stock market, so on and so forth. And also the abaya is not compulsory. It has been virtually abandoned now by the team. And there are many areas I have written recently on this issue. My colleague, Professor Bansidhar in JNU is publishing the emerging scenario of women in the Arab world. This chapter on Saudi Arabia, I've written about all of these things, like MBS, how it is reshaping the social contract in Saudi Arabia. And, when the war was going on and the Palestinians were being killed in Gaza, the New Year was celebrated on such a large scale that it was unthinkable. Western performers were invited, and hundreds and thousands of Saudi men, women, boys, girls were dancing. It was unthinkable earlier, few years ago. So now what he has done is not only moderated the syllabus which the mullahs were teaching the Saudi students, which has virtually been erased, the extremist part, and all these social reforms also have been carried out. And hopefully Saudi Arabia tries to be on par with women in Palestine or Egypt or any other Arab. The rest of the questions, we will wait for Friday.
Okay.
Yes, sir, just one point. So, I read all of that about how the changes have been brought about in Saudi Arabia. The question was more pointed towards, do you think the European countries can do that? Because I think that's where most of the
European countries changing in their country. Where? Changes where?
Sir, I can't hear you.
No, what do you expect from the European countries?
No, because we were talking about de-radicalization, and I think sir had talked about in the book that how what Morocco had done and what France has also done, let's say, trying to surveil that sort of radicalization in their own countries.
No, the European countries cannot do this. That is why the rightist groups have emerged. From Italy to Spain to Netherlands, all the European countries, it is the rightist groups which are putting pressure on the governments there. The regimes cannot do it on their own. Macron, what he has done on hijab is because of popular pressure from the Catholic communities to counter the North African immigrants who are getting radicalized. And they are getting radicalized not because of Islam, but because of poverty and the mistreatment and racism which they are facing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rohini. So, like, any questions?
Good evening, sir. I am Harish Raya, a student of international relations, second year student of international relations. The discussion was very thought provoking, and I want to thank both the professors. It gave me a bird eye view on West Asian politics and especially oil politics. And also one anecdote that you told between Aurangzeb and Dhara Shikoh, that one had a violent teacher and one had a peaceful teacher, that sects, Hanafi and Hanbali sects. And sir, my question is, these jihadists and terrorist groups, they have done a great damage to goodwill of Islam as a religion. So we, being a country of 300 million Muslims, and we have a situation in politics where right-wing radicalization is rampant. So how will these impact our politics and India on a large scale, sir?
So politics, actually, the people don't understand how this whole process started. So that is given in the book. So if they understand, it's not that every Muslim is a radical and jihadi. It's not true. There are certain reasons which has happened and which has been catalogued in this book and described in detail. So if you read this book, and of course, whoever you will read it will understand the position of rest of the Muslims in India. So okay, they are not, but there are certain reasons by which this thing happened, and certain people are radicalized, and whatever happened is happened. So I think that is why it is in a popular format. It is not an academic, only the academician should read. It is in a very popular way, in a language which is available and is, it is not having the academic jargon as you have in layman. It is for the layman to understand. And this book, I hope, such more books will come and explain to the English-speaking people what is their English language. That's why I want to be translated into Hindi or some other languages. Malayalam, I'm talking. So that way, that more people will get access to this kind of contents. What really happened? Why they became so jihadi?
This question is title for your next book, Impact on India. But briefly, to answer your question, you see, in 79, as I said, Muslims from all over the world were Saudi embassies were mobilizing, but not a single Indian went and fought against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And
Islamic
the
State,
American Secretary of State, she said, Clinton, that we did not find any Indians except handful, 4 or 5, again supporting the Islamic State also.
Yeah,
In Mosul, in Raqqa and all, they did not find Indians. Although, as you said, there are more than 300 million.
Yeah.
It's a very big chunk, larger than the Arabs and North Africans and others. But see, we have been secularized, respect for all religion. And the economic compulsions also don't permit the Muslims there the luxury of going and supporting Islamic causes in Afghanistan, Iran, in the Islamic State or Lebanon or Hamas or anything. Out of the 300 million Muslims, more than 250 million, they struggle to survive, and on a daily basis, they have to work hard. They have to produce for their families. They cannot dream of going out. So in that way, economic compulsions and the secular nature of this political system, because all have opportunity. You are hardworking, whether you are a Muslim, Christian, Jew, whatever, you can make money. So you have to feed your family. In that way, the environment, political environment, economic compulsions, and you see the Muslims have been living in a society where for example, we were in Kerala, the Muslims don't know a word about Urdu or in Tamil Nadu. They talk in the same Malayalam, Tamil and other languages. A Muslim in Kerala will not understand if I say a lecture in Urdu.
No, they
don't understand a word about it. So in that way, this interaction between the groups has been quite intense. And economically, socially, they are all interlinked.
Dependent to each other. And still in North India, the political parties say whatever they say. But if you go to the ground level, they have interaction, they have a sort of business together and all that. And it's still happening. And the Bhakti movement had played a big role in bringing all the Muslims and all that. Because that kind of a spirituality. So only this aberration came by the Salafism and all that. Wahhabism. After. So this was an aberration in Islam, even in this, globally, not only in South Asia. So that is what the people are feeling about it.
And these founders have realized that.
Yeah, now they realize it. Thankfully, they are realizing it is a mistake. We made it. So hopefully, in the next decade or 2 decades, things will come back to normal. It takes time, in such things it cannot happen overnight. It takes time. But more and more work is required on such
Yes.
things, and so these ideas which I have thrown in this book, so that will give in a thesis or master thesis or PhD thesis. You probe all these areas and then try to analyze from your own perspective. So that will help the relationship with the Middle East and with the West Asia and the Muslim community. The other community will understand more better way. But in India, the people are not reading much books. That is a big problem. People don't read books.
We need to create awareness.
Awareness.
Scholars.
Yeah.
The books you.
Because all this internet,
Yes.
social media, WhatsApp, keeps them
That's
busy.
what this our friend did in the book. That is misuse. That these technologies are likely to be misused, and all is happening. The WhatsApp and all those things.
Artificial intelligence.
That will be misused.
With the
So there is a
less,
danger for that.
yes, sir. With the less information, they are creating lot of confusion.
Yeah.
They
So
will
there's
try-
always, it's like an atomic bomb. When they started fusion, they are not thought that will kill the people, but they ultimately used to kill the people, a large number. So the technology was there and the knowledge was there, but those who created, they never intended to kill the people. Yeah. So similarly, the people don't try to harm the others, but some groups come up and they try to use it. It's always happens.
So anyone wants to ask questions? It's fine.
Let's just pulling the
Nice.
standing between lunch.
Yes, sir.
155.
Sometimes it's 130,
1:45.
145.
Yeah.
Short of 40 minutes.
So I am thankful that you involved the investors in the discussion.
It's a very good
Yeah, I think it's a good initiative. So how often you discuss books here?
And so regularly, sir, I will make them to write an article and we have a students book review also. And we have a departmental library and Professor Agni also. donated a book.
His daughter, she has donated some books.
Okay.
More than, I think, 100 together books.
So
she
that
donated,
is
sir. Yes.
As part of their MA program, they have to write a dissertation also in the final
Dissertations.
semester.
No, but such books which are coming on this, you could ask the author to bring here and discuss with this as we are discussing.
Yes, sir.
So
And
that
now
will be
it will continue, sir. This is first time we are
This is the first.
initiated,
Yeah,
sir.
good.
Initiated, sir.
Thanks, Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And now we have to carry out this culture, sir.
Yeah,
And in future also we will be having, sir will be coming and
yeah.
he will be sharing his ideas with students, sir.
In the India International Center Delhi, every month they have 2 book discussions written by foreign secretaries or retired people and all that.
Okay.
So that is the kind of a thing which gives a kind of interaction with the people and writers and all that. Why you go to the analysis of that. So not only your subject, but other books you also start having a discussion.
That is a vast area.
Yes,
The vast area, but related to that,
yes.
because some ambassador writes with their own experiences, they write about all those things.
Yes, sir. Now we will continue this with your support. We will
Yeah.
continue, sir. And in coming days, definitely it will help our students, sir.
Yeah.
And we have an internship and they will write, sir. And now, till now, sir, many students, they have selected very new topics and very interesting. And initially we are doing this, sir. We have to carry forward, sir.
So all of you bought this book? No?
We can buy, I think that.
You can buy here, where is the guy?
I think he's outside.
You can-
So I request Yashmita to deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. So first, let us thank the Almighty and this universe for providing us with this opportunity to have this wonderful session on the book Fault Lines in the Faith by Professor Iqbal. I really enjoyed this thought-provoking discussion we had today. Thank you, Professor Iqbal sir, for providing in-depth analysis on issues like Shia crescent in the Middle East, Muslim youth in Europe, and evolution of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Though Professor K.S. Rangappa sir is not here now, I take this opportunity to thank him for his words of motivation. We were blessed to have you at this event, sir. We thank Professor A.K. Pasha sir for his words of remarks. And in the absence of our beloved principal and AO sir, we heartily thank them for their moral support. Dr. Bharti ma'am, I express my sincere gratitude for your guidance and constant support, without which we would not be here. My heartfelt thanks to the students who joined us from different institutions through both online and offline mode. Last but not the least, I thank Dr. Sangamitra ma'am, my wonderful classmates, amazing audience both online and offline, and the media persons for joining us today. And once again, I thank each and everyone who made this event possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.